Okay, let's go.
Nicolas Cage podcast. Nicolas Cage podcast. Na 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 na. Vond je een film van Nicolas Cage leuk? Dan zou het kunnen dat hij in deze podcast zit. Nicolas Cage podcast. Na 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 na. National Treasure.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to National Treasure, the podcast where I, your host Brandon Collar, talks about Nicolas Cage movies.
Nicolas Cage podcast.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, and that time is whenever you are listening to this episode, because it is a very wonderful and special episode. You might hear it if you've heard the podcast before, but now I'm speaking English. I'm very sorry for my accent, but there is a reason why I'm speaking English. It's because my special guest for this very special episode speaks English. She is a librarian, an editor, a freelance writer with a special interest in zines, comics, film, and youth culture. She is also the writer of the book National Treasure, the book this podcast is based on. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to her, and I love to share this conversation with you. So, welcome to the Cage stage, Lindsay Gibb.
Na 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 na. National Treasure.
Hey, hello Lindsay Gibb, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm a bit nervous because you are my first non-Dutch speaking guest on the show, so I'm a bit jittery, but grand. Thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, you're welcome, I would say. The reason I wanted to talk to you on this special day is, first, we have the entirety season of National Treasure, the podcast, and you're the person that inspired me to make this podcast.
Oh, really?
Yes, because you've written this book that is called National Treasure by Lindsay Gibb. And it's all about how your love for Nicolas Cage now has sources and has been stated by facts that he indeed is the greatest actor of all time.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to write this book?
I think it was the fact that I casually liked him, and then I would notice that people would, speak badly about some of his films and specifically like target him and say like he's a bad actor or he chooses bad movies or something. And I would just feel like they were so wrong just from the bit of evidence I had from watching a handful of his films. And then, so I would argue with people. And then I live in Toronto, and the Toronto International Film Festival has a year-round cinema here.
Cool.
I think I mentioned this in my book, but
Yeah,
they did a retrospective on him, and me and my husband were like, oh my God, we gotta go, because I've been defending Nicolas Cage to people all this time. I need to just like get more evidence. And then after that, we were just like, okay, we gotta go down the rabbit hole and watch everything. So we started a film club where our friends would come over once a month and watch one of his films.
Wow.
And we did that for like 3 years, I think, before I pitched this book. And then by then I had lots of ammunition to write the book. Lots of conversations about Cage had been had prior to that.
So there is a Cage club in Canada.
There's multiple, actually. So my club existed probably up until my book came out, and then we kind of I also moved, so I didn't live in a condo that had a theater room anymore to do it. So we stopped in like 2015, and then a few years ago, a new club that like existed in Toronto contacted me and asked me to come and be a guest at one of their like meetings. And so I've attended their group quite a few times, and they're a big group of very enthusiastic people. I think they're are they called Cage of the Month? It's terrible that I don't remember exactly what they're called, but yeah, they watch. They have like a bingo spinner,
Oh
like a
God.
big thing, and
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have
yeah.
like the balls inside, and he's written the name of each movie on the balls, and that's how they decide which movie to watch.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
B7, Mandy.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a bingo. That would be great. That's because there are a lot of films. At
Yeah,
this moment, I think there are 107 films.
that sounds about right. It's definitely over 100 at this
Yeah,
point.
I'm doing 10 a season, so I'm in for 10
Oh
seasons.
wow, yeah. I was gonna say, once you get to the 10 seasons, there'll be at least 50 more to watch by that
Of
point.
course.
Because yeah, he makes about 5 a year, it seems. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard to catch up. Very hard.
Can you describe the first time you saw a Nicolas Cage film?
It's so hard to know because I'm sure I was very young when I saw my first Cage film, but I think the first one I remember seeing was It Could Happen to You.
Yeah.
I don't think I had strong feelings about It Could Happen to You. I think I was just like, this is a movie. Um, yeah, unfortunately, that is not like a big, strong moment for Cage for me. Um,
It's okay.
but I think one of the first times that I remember being like, oh yeah, this guy is seriously amazing, was Adaptation. And I know that that's like super recently, especially compared to It Can Happen to You. But, well, I think actually maybe I'd seen Wild at Heart before that too. And I was like,
Hmm.
whoa, like I had watched that because I was a big David Lynch fan. And then I was like, wow, Nicolas Cage is so good in this. And
Oh
then
yeah.
seeing Adaptation just like solidified Nicolas Cage is the best. He's so good. Yeah,
Those are great films, especially Wild at Heart. It's one of my top favorites of the Cage movies. I
me
saw that one
too.
when I was 16. I did art school, and we had a class in film, and that opened my gates to David Lynch, but also to Requiem for a Dream. Just great films that hit you differently. But my first Cage movie ever was City of Angels, because my
Oh,
mom really likes that film. And my first thought was, well, this is a weird movie. I'm not, I don't know how to feel. But then I saw Next. So Next is my first, okay, this is a Cage film, and you're gonna watch it because of Cage. And I liked
right.
it. I love that film. Also, not
Yeah.
the strongest choice, but it's a choice.
No, it's kind of cool to have sort of those random Cage films that mean something to you because
Yeah.
no one else knows those films. um, so they're extra special.
Yeah, that's it. It's every time I see that film or clips of it, the same with Lord of War because that's such a good movie. I always get that feeling that I'm back in that small apartment with that t too
Tiny
big
TV.
television with the
Oh,
VCR.
oh yeah, wow.
Yeah, I got that one when I did my second communion. In Belgium, we're all Christians and all that. So you get
Oh,
gifts, and my sister got me this tiny, but just already too big television with a VCR inside of it. I can watch the
oh
tapes.
yes, yes. I'm familiar with those TVs.
What is your favorite performance in a Nick Cage film, if you can choose?
Yeah, it is hard to choose. I feel like I stick with the same answer all the time, but as I see more and more like newer films, I feel
Hmm.
like like some of those could usurp this, but like Vampire's Kiss I feel like is the like foundational Nicolas Cage film that I think helps people to understand him. Like if you've seen
Hmm.
Vampire's Kiss and then you see like Mandy or something newer, you can like
Yeah.
see the evolution and understand where he's coming from. And Vampire's Kiss is just, I feel like such an experimental move with a
Mm,
film, and
yes.
like especially for someone who is already establishing himself as like kind of a leading man, like an A-list actor, to do something like a indie film like Vampire's Kiss that also just has a very weird premise and But it also just let him. I feel like the director just let him do everything he wanted to do in that case. Whereas I feel like Raising Arizona is such a good movie, but I don't think that the Coen brothers let him do what he wanted. They were like, this is how we envision this character. This is
Yeah.
what you're going to do. He did an amazing job with it, but he had to, I'm sure, compromise a lot of his own ideas for it. Whereas Vampire's Kiss, I feel like, is like full Cage. That's all him.
Yeah, he mentions it also in interviews that he's very proud of that film because of the artistic choices that he could make. For instance, with the eating of the live cockroach, the rant of the alphabet that he choreographed every letter, every
Yes.
move. Because I'm also an actor, that to me is the study of your instrument. It is working with how can you use your voice and your body in that way. And when reading your book, you talked about the Laban methods that could work in, I think, adaptation, was it?
Yeah.
And that clicked for me enormously because it is the pulling and it is the consuming in Laban that he majestically does. It's a ballet. It's really just a ballet.
Absolutely, yeah. His movements in a lot of his films are, you can, like, again, if you've watched Vampire's Kiss, and then you can kind of see throughout other films when he has,
Yeah,
like, these defined movements. You can imagine that each time he did that take, like, he was doing the exact same movements, and he just had it all choreographed. It's so good.
yeah, exactly. And he also says that in order to play Face Off, he had to do Vampire's Kiss because it's an extension of that experiment that he does. You can see it
Hmm.
in his face when he has that fight scene in the prison, that he has that wicked smile. I think, oh, that is exactly how he did it in Vampire's Kiss. That is the creme de la creme, as we would say.
Yes.
Do you have a least favorite
I,
performance?
I do. I have a least favorite film. I don't know if it's specifically because of his performance, but I just feel like there's certain films of his where the film isn't maybe the best, but I can see
Hmm.
like some great Cage moments in it. And I feel like oh gosh, remembering the name of this film. Season of the Witch.
Ah, yes, Season of the
I
Witch. Yeah, where
don't
he plays
I
the
don't
knight.
yeah, who's like trying to get rid of this witch. I yeah, I mean, I think I've only watched it once or twice, so maybe if I'd watched it like 40 times, I could find something in it, but I just didn't want to because I did not like it very much. So I think Left Behind is the other one that I don't have a lot of good feelings for.
Yeah, I get your choices. I think Season of the Witch has some moments, but it's a weird choice. But then again, Cage pulls it off.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Do you have a least favorite?
oh God, do I have a least favorite? Oh, I find that such a difficult question because there are so many films that I
I
think
know.
he's great in it. That is just I think
I'm pulling up his IMDb now so that I don't forget any films because, like you say, there's 100 and something. It's
yeah
hard to remember them all.
I I I, I might say G-Force
Okay, is that
because
the hamster one?
yeah, that's a hamster one from Disney because he has done
Oh,
great voice acting like in Spider-Man, for instance, or in Astro Boy. I think there he's doing fantastically, but the
hmm.
movie itself is just CGI hamsters, and that is just not my vibe.
That's fair. I haven't, that's one place where I'm falling behind with Cage. I've watched all of his movies, but I haven't watched all of his animated stuff, but I have watched G-Force. And I felt like Cage was really good in it.
Oh
Like
yeah,
he was that mole, and it was like a zany, like weird character. It was like full Cage. Um, But yeah, I don't know if I've watched Astro Boy.
It's
There's
good.
like a Christmas one I haven't watched. It's just a Christmas Carol, I think, but
Oh, I haven't
I
seen
haven't
that one.
watched that. So yeah, there's a few.
And is there for you a hidden gem that the general audience should see?
Yes. Oh, I'm in on G-Force now. Let me.
Everybody, just go see G-Force. It's
No.
hamsters.
Um, One that I feel like uh, a lot of people don't know about because I'm not sure that it really came out in theaters properly was Army of One.
Oh,
Do
yeah,
you
I
know
get
which
that.
movie I'm talking about? It's the one where he plays the guy who, like a real life guy who went to Afghanistan to try and track down Osama bin Laden, and it's just like a very weird story. But Cage like plays this plays the guy, and he's all
Hmm.
like beardy and long haired, and just like he's a weird guy, and so Cage is playing this weird guy, and it's just so funny, so funny. So yeah, it's a different film for him, and it was just like
Yeah,
one that was under the radar. So that's
yeah,
why I bring it up.
that's a good
Yeah,
choice because I'm instantly thinking about Butcher's Crossing. This is coming out in the Netherlands in May, I think, where he is acting, but also I think in that movie he's going to be bald.
he is
So
bald.
that
Yes,
yeah, so that in comparison to Army of One, where he has that long hair,
long hair. Yeah.
he has he can do everything.
So Butcher's Crossing was at the Toronto International Film Festival, so I saw it there. Yeah,
Oh, you already saw it because
I did.
is it? Can I ask? Maybe it's a spoiler, but what do you think?
It was good. I would say again that it's one of those things where I think Cage is better than the film,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's good. It's something different for him.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
When
it's
it
good.
gets to Europe, I'm just gonna sit there in the cinema and gawk in awe.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because The Old Way is now a film that a lot of like trailers are out
Yeah,
for, and it's like a traditional Western, but like Butcher's Crossing is also a Western, so it's just interesting how he has these like phases of, he did a bunch of horror movies or like horror-esque movies all at
hmm,
once, and then now he's doing a couple of westerns. It's like, and then, he's done action movies together and some comedies together and stuff. It just seems like he's always looking for some new thing to try, and maybe he tries a couple at a time.
exactly. When you think he's gonna make a left turn or a right turn, he makes a U-turn up a mountain,
Yeah, exactly.
and I, I'm always thinking like, well, what the hell was this, or what the fuck is going on? You
Yes.
describe this also in your book, like this is something that he craves, that feeling of what the fuck and what the hell.
Yeah.
But why does he want his audience to feel that way? Because I'm thinking, because you also said that this in your book, there is an audience for his action film. There's an audience for his more sunshine period that breaks up his audience. So why say, hey, what the fuck every time?
Right. I think he said like more recently after my book came out that he doesn't look at his body of work as a career. He looks at it as like a job. So he's a guy that goes to a job. So each one I think he kind of takes on its own, like I'm just going to work. And while I still stand behind that I said I think he's choosing things because he sees a challenge in whatever it is that he's taking on,
Yeah,
that there's something for him to learn or something new for him to try. So I think maybe the fact that he doesn't look at it as a career, I'm sure he's like thankful for his audience, but I don't think he's necessarily thinking about like what do people expect
mm.
from me. He's thinking more like what can I learn? What can I bring? You know, what new thing can I try?
as
So I
as an
think that just automatically leads to it being weird.
yeah,
Also,
yeah, I
I
get that.
think he's just honestly a strange guy. And I think that he's just bringing himself a lot to to the stuff that he's making.
Yeah, well, you talk about this in the book that he has those dinosaur bones and with the snake with two heads that he is a bit eccentric and a bit weird. But my question on that is his behavior, is that influencing is it influencing the choices that he makes, or is it vice versa? What is that relationship?
That's a good question.
Oh, thank you. I try.
I don't know. Like, I think I don't remember who I was talking to about this, but we have a theory that because Nicolas Cage grew up in like a sort of famous family, well, a definitely famous family,
Yeah,
but
of
his
course.
side of
Yeah.
the family was less famous than the Francis Ford Coppola side of the family. But I think and because he, started acting at 18 and he's been in this like world of fame for so long, I think
Hmm.
you can only have normalcy in your life to such a degree. Like it's not his life can't be normal. It can't be like what we see as normal life.
Yeah.
So I think that automatically influences him just
Yeah.
because he just can't be a normal person. That's not possible. Right? um
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's what Bill Burr says, that the first really famous person in the world was Elvis, and he made all the wrong decisions. And stardom has these weird qualities, which ultimately brings us to Cage, because he's also world famous and an Elvis fan. So that
yes,
marriage of
that's
ideas
true.
comes out.
Idolizes Elvis. I think too, like with all the money that he has or had or whatever, that plays into his ability to try all of the things, like the owning of a two-headed snake and like all those things that somebody might aspire to. I don't know. That's a bit of a strange thing to aspire to, but you know what I mean. Somebody else might be like, I'd love to have a two-headed snake, but they wouldn't have the means to do it. He just has the
Yeah,
means to try all, like buy all these dinosaur bones or whatever. Yeah.
a haunted house with a couple of friends. Yeah, that's something I'm gonna do this summer.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you're talking here about his family, and he has a very famous family. The Coppolas are great, The Godfather and all that. But
Hmm.
you also talk in the book about his mom. Mom was
Hmm.
a dancer, also was institutionalized. In what way did his mom inspire or influence him in the road that Cage went on?
Yeah, I mean, I speculated that the dancing bit, like the movement, the specific movements and the fact that he thinks about movement is
Hmm.
potentially inspired by his mother. So that's one. But I know too that he has said that he grew up really afraid that the mental illness that she had ran in the family and that he was
Oh,
bound to also be institutionalized and like have a mental illness problem. So I think is inspired by that fear of that, like
hmm.
the fear that he might be institutionalized or might have the same issues that she had. I don't know exactly how that plays into, but I mean, I guess as an actor, just observing other people and other like people's characteristics and stuff leads, you use all of that
Yeah,
in creating your work. So, yeah.
yeah, you do, because he builds characters from different places to create something truly unique. And I think with the fear of mental illness, he wants to try out as much as he can, possibly.
Yeah, yeah, well, he can. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, he says being comfortable is not an option. You have to sometimes be uncomfortable to learn things. So maybe that fear is if I can be uncomfortable, I can learn something new. If it becomes something that I know, I can't be afraid anymore. It's maybe, I'm just speculating here,
Right.
it's that gut feeling, like this is something with tension, with electricity in it. This is what I need to do. So now
Hmm.
he's a cowboy.
Yeah, he needs to be a cowboy right now.
Is there any time in Cage's career that you said, what the fuck? This is a move that I did not foresee you doing.
Hmm. I'm looking at the
IMDb.
The IMDb. I'm
What
scanning the
the hell did you
IMDb.
make?
I feel like yes. I feel like I've seen some things. I mean, there's little runs of films that he does that I'm like, stop doing. Definitely like my book came out in 2015, and at that point he'd had a pretty good run because right-ish, like Joe was 2013, so it was at the height of me like writing the book. So I was like, he is coming back. He's doing great things.
Not that he ever went anywhere, but he's coming
Yeah,
back.
exactly. Not that he ever went anywhere. But then once my book came out, I feel like there was a run of movies that weren't amazing, like Arsenal, Inconceivable, The Humanity Bureau.
Oh
I don't
yeah, the
know,
Humanity Bureau. Yeah,
like
there's
Looking
a movie.
Glass, 211, like some of those weren't the greatest. Like I feel like after my book came out, there was at least four movies that I was like, woof, if I've had to like defend those in my book, I'm not sure I could have done it. But then he, does things like Color Out of Space and
Perfect.
Mandy and I'm trying to look to
Big.
see was the Pig, of course. Prisoners of the Ghostland was pretty
That
great.
is such a great but weird film.
Yes.
Just the color of it and the masks. There is so much to unpack in that film. I love that. And Mandy, I adore Mandy. Not only
Yeah.
because it has a Belgian side to that story, because it's been filmed in the Ardennes, but also the fact that the color purple and red are so into that movie. Just every picture is a frame,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
it's fantastic. But the Humanity Bureau, I talked about this on the podcast with Justine, and we both looked at that movie and said, the idea we love. Great idea. Cage,
Hmm.
great actor. But why is that guy in a pool to talk to his henchmen? We don't understand that. And it's filled with
Yeah.
those weird ideas that we think, we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's always disappointing when he does something that is just kind of blah, like the film is just kind of eh. It's okay if he does something that's just like so out there that you're like, it's not necessarily a good movie, but it's just wild. Like, why did
Yeah,
that happen? Then you're like, that was great. But yeah, when he does something where you're just like, I don't have any feelings when that ended, and that's too bad. That's not what you want. And that doesn't happen a lot. Like again, he
no,
does so many films. It's incredible that has happened only a handful of times when
true.
he's putting out like 5 films a year.
Yeah,
But
but because
yeah,
he's that machine of getting to every detail, everything is properly placed, and he goes through all of those motions to get there. He never phones it in, never does.
exactly. He does not. He's always present.
And the idea that he still looks for new ways, like I've written them down here, like Western kabuki, German expressionism, realism, nouveau shamanic. These are all new ways of not only observing but obtaining the craft to make it your own.
Mhm.
Is there a method that Nicolas Cage prefers, or is it all equal to him?
That's interesting. I was thinking about that this morning. I was thinking about the whole Western kabuki thing and thinking that
Hmm.
if I had a chance, because I haven't ever spoken to him, but if I were to
Me
speak to
neither.
him, I would ask him if Western kabuki is something that he continues or if it was
Hmm.
really a Ghost Rider thing, because I feel like he talked about it around Ghost Rider and it was really strongly something he used to like put makeup on even though he wasn't going to be seen because they were animating over his face, but it was like helping him to create the character.
Yeah,
And I do wonder how that plays into any of his other films and if it does. So yeah, I don't know. Like I would say realism is definitely not something that he relies on a lot.
yeah. He spat it out. I was
Yeah.
done. I need to wipe the face of realism clean and just go
Yeah.
somewhere else.
I
That's
think
great.
surrealism is probably the closest thing that, like, he's not always doing surreal things. I think he's doing it when he has the opportunity to do it. And maybe he does it sometimes when one wouldn't expect, like in a film you wouldn't expect. But yeah, I feel like that's something I can see more in his films.
Yeah, I totally get that because it's a different approach to reality in surrealism. The dreamlike state that you mentioned in the book is something that he finds very interesting to
Hmm.
not only see what's out there, but to enhance it or decrease it, to get you to observe and entertain reality as a completely different notion. Yeah,
Totally.
totally. I found it very interesting that the fact that he for Ghost Rider 2 that he had that makeup on and that jacket with the lining in from different
Oh
animals and all that.
yeah, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I thought, wow, that is great to get that click in your mind. Okay, I am not a human, I am this being, which would have been great for that Superman film with Kevin Smith. That if he could portray, I am not a human, I am an alien on a human world. I think that would be so great.
It is one of the great tragedies of our time that that movie never came out because I just feel like
Yeah.
it would be so incredible to see what he would have done with it. Like, I think also just the fact that it was a Tim Burton thing, it would have been so interesting to see what they could have done together.
Exactly, that would have been amazing. Now he has done a voice of Superman,
Yes,
and he has done a voice of Spider-Man Noir. So he has been living his
comic
Marvel
book dream.
DC
Yeah,
comic book journey.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm happy for him that he can do
I
that.
I honestly feel like, and this, I don't know, one of the iconic characters that I'm really excited he gets to play is Dracula coming up in the
Yes,
Renfield films.
Redfield. Oh,
That is gonna be
amazing.
amazing.
I just
Yeah,
hope that there is like a wink to Vampire's Kiss. It's like a sentence or anything like that.
yeah.
That would
I
be
hope so.
so
That would
great.
be great. Yeah,
Or like in the
so excited.
background that you see a shop with like these fake teeth. Oh, yes, of course.
Cheapies.
Yeah, the cheap, the cheap ones because
I
he
love
couldn't
it.
afford. Oh, it would be
It's my
so great.
favorite. It's my favorite thing in that movie where he just goes cheapy when the guy says we have cheapies. Oh, I love it.
It is such a great film.
It is.
Difficult to find in Belgium
Oh
because
yeah.
yeah, you can't find it anywhere. I had to find it through a friend of a friend who had it on DVD because we have Amazon, but it's not that common. We have something called Bol.com, which is Amazon but in blue, and they do not have the film.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
but I've
That's
seen it.
tough.
I love it, and if it
That's
ever
good.
comes back to cinema, I'm there.
Yes.
Uh, Talking about genius things and genius movies, you start off chapter 3 of your book, Cage Against the Machine. By the way, I love your titles in the book.
Oh, thank
They
you.
are amazing. They are. You start off. Nicolas Cage is a genius.
Oh yes.
uh, at first, I thought yes. Oh, wait, you have arguments. Okay. Could you elaborate on that for our listeners and our
Oh
viewers?
God. I mean, it's been a while since I read my book, so I don't remember why I said he was a
Oh,
genius.
oh shit, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Um, so I don't know if this is reflective of what I said. Why is he a genius? I mean, I stand behind it. Okay, you tell me. Why did I say he's a
Okay.
genius?
Yes, I'll answer my own questions.
Yeah.
You talked that there is a test that has been devised, like
Oh, that.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, like if you've been doing the same thing, yes or no, or been elaborating on the craft, making choices that are out of your comfort zone, that you can be labeled as an artistic genius, and he is that. And above all, Chuck Klosterman said, because he is adherent to the advanced genius theory, that Cage is an advanced genius.
Yes.
and he bases that on 3 movies: The Wicker Man, The Weatherman, and Bad Lieutenant Protocol New Orleans.
Right.
I was wondering why those 3 movies, because
That's a great question. So, this is maybe bad journalism, but a friend of mine went to see Chuck Klosterman. He was in Toronto, like touring a book, and she asked him on my behalf because I wasn't there. She asked him, "Is he a genius?" And then, like specifically in this advanced genius theory, because it's somebody else's theory, but Chuck Klosterman's written about it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so he said yes, and then he just said it was those 3 movies. That was just relayed to me by a friend, which I do say. I think I say a friend of
you
mine.
say it like in a footnote.
Yeah, so I don't have the background. I wasn't there to ask follow-up questions, so I don't know why he chose those films. But I feel like Wicker Man, I could see why someone would say that fits into the advanced genius theory, because that theory is kind of, and it's been a long time since I've read it, so I might be applying it wrong, but like a bit of what it seems like on the surface is that if you can look at somebody and see that they were like really popular at doing something for a while, and then they switch to something else that is really unpopular with the public, that and like seems bad. that and I don't think that alone, but that is kind of the signifier of advanced genius. So I think that, the author points to like Bob Dylan switching to electric, and like Neil Young doing like, oh crap, I'm not going to remember the name of the album that Neil Young did that was all like weird experimental stuff. So that kind of thing. So I think I could see somebody like Chuck Klosterman saying Wicker Man is evidence of advanced genius, because it is something that people point to as like bad. But like the fans can look at it and say like he's in on the joke of that film.
Yeah.
Like it's not serious. It's not a serious
Exactly.
film. Yeah, it's not a serious adaptation or whatever. And so, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, because I think if you get into a bear costume and hit a nun, then yeah, that is a joke.
Right, like that's not a serious thing. Yeah. What were
And
the other 2 that he said? Weatherman and
oh wait, me and my
sorry.
notes. The Wicker, no, just me and the chaos. The Wicker Man, The Weatherman, and Bad Lieutenant Protocol New Orleans van Herzog.
Bad Lieutenant. I mean, again, Bad Lieutenant it comes across interestingly because, like Wicker Man, people interpret it as a adaptation,
Or a sequel.
even though it absolutely isn't. Yeah, or a sequel, though it's like has nothing to do with Bad Lieutenant, the original. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot going on in Bad Lieutenant, and I could see maybe the fact that it's just such an intense character that he's playing, and a very unlikable kind of character.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very likable, but it's also the cinematography that it's with Steadicam, it's with a handheld thingy, the iguanas that are there but not there, so you can see that he is popped up on drugs. It's an interesting. I love that film because it's not about the crime story at all. It's about him trying to survive and continue. Because at the end of the case, when everything is said and done, he goes back to that parking lot of that discotheque and starts again. So
I know.
it's the story is not the story. The story is something else.
Yeah.
Great film. I love
It's so
it.
good. It's so good. I love
It's
it.
great. And it's Werner Herzog. He is a weird but beautiful cinematographer. It's a great marriage that these two have made that film together. It's just a bit sad that it's called Bad Lieutenant because of the film that came before.
Exactly. I could see too, now that I'm thinking about what Chuck Klosterman said more, I think these are all films that people are very divided on. Like Weatherman was really maybe the film that made me a defender of Cage, because I watched it, I really liked it, and then I went to work and people were like, I watched Weatherman and that movie was just awful. Like they hated the dad talking about his daughter's like camel toe and like that kind of stuff. They were just like, it's so distasteful and whatever. And I was like, Cage is so good in this
Yeah.
film, and it's just it's so good. It's so good. So yeah, I mean, I was maybe not super articulate in my defense of him. I'm sure I was just like, but he's so good. How could you? But yeah, that was definitely one where I feel like people were just like, he's an unlikable guy. I don't like this movie. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's not a good enough reason to not like a movie just because he successfully made a character that is
Yeah,
not
exactly.
likable. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, in theater, you have an entire part of history that is all about distancing yourself from the main character because die Verfremdung. It's entirely that he does. You don't have to like me. That's not part of this deal. You have to
Hmm.
watch me,
Hmm.
observe me. That's great. It's yeah. It's it's a different influence that Cage uses to learn something new about the craft and also about ourselves. Yeah, we don't like this character. We actually hate him. And yet, we're there for the entire journey. That's great art.
I mean, that's Vampire's Kiss too. Like
Yeah,
he does some very terrible things in that movie, and yet still you're compelled by him, and you kind of, I mean, yeah, you're not necessarily unhappy about the ending,
no.
but you're like, wow, like what is happening? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I get that we are fans, and during the entire filming, I would say, or recording of season 1 of this podcast, one name has also come up to his defense. That's Roger Ebert. He was
Hmm.
a great defender of Cage, love fan. Sadly, he has passed away.
Hmm.
So, besides us, who could be that great defender of the Cage in the review world?
That's a great question, and I think I have an answer to that. I just have to remember his name. Nathan Rabin.
Nathan Rabin.
Nathan Rabin. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he
A
wrote
bit.
for AV Club, and I don't 100% know what he's up to these days. But I did reach out to him to blurb my book, and he was up for reading it, but he was moving, and it was I had like a week to get people to blurb it, so he wasn't available. He couldn't do it, but he is somebody who definitely defends Cage and a lot of his like bad. I'm putting air quotes here.
Yeah.
Movies. Um, so, and he's, higher profile than I am. So I think that
Oh,
he's a good defender. Honestly, Roger Ebert, it's really sad. I mean, it's sad that he died just because it's sad. But
yeah.
I was starting to write this book in 2013, and I was like, one person I'm definitely going to interview is Roger Ebert, and then that's the year that he died. So I couldn't interview him, but I was like 100% planning to.
Wow.
I didn't interview a lot of people, especially not high profile people, but I was planning to try Ebert because he was a big fan and defender, so he would have
Yeah,
been good.
it's crazy to see because I started with the idea that I read that book. I wanted to do this research, putting air quotes as well,
Hmm.
that what do the people that in this country, in my country, think about him or outside of it? And his name keeps popping up. So I did a little googlies, like who is he? And yeah, he is the knight in shining armor for Cage on the
Yeah.
round table. And Rabin, well, you mentioned in your book, and I have seen a couple of things, but not too much. Still new to this whole podcasting world.
Hmm.
But yeah, he could be, because I have a direct quote here from Rabin that
Hmm.
states, "We need key." Wow, English is a different language.
That's fine.
We need Cage to be crazy in real life, or else the lunacy of his performances would feel inauthentic. And we already talked about that. But that's one of the quotes that I thought was very interesting. We need him to be a bit of a Woody Woodpecker figure so we can believe the things he does.
Right. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I was doing it in this podcast, right? I was saying like he's a
Yeah.
strange guy, but like I think I've seen more evidence of that recently. Like that wasn't so much in back in 2013 to 15 when I was writing this book. I didn't see quite as much of his like big personality outside of
Hmm.
his films. I think now there's just more like paparazzi stuff around him, and you can see
Oh yeah.
more like interesting things that he has done. And so yeah, he just I mean, I'm not saying he's yeah, I don't
Daffy.
think yeah, I don't think he's yeah, I think he's probably a very normal, nice guy.
Yeah,
I'll say.
that's the thing that I find very interesting because I've seen an interview of him that he cartwheels on stage, he
Oh
high
yes.
kicks,
Yeah.
buttons up in his shirt, and is like, "Okay, let's talk," and which is fantastic. But then he does something like the Wired interview that has the autofill that he has to pull the white
Yeah,
tape, and he's down to the earth, very like, "Okay,
totally.
these are the answers. I'll give them to you." The greatest one, I think, was does Nicolas Cage do method acting? Depends on the method. Walk, throws away the sign.
Oh, very good.
Greatest answer
That is a
ever.
good answer.
Oh
Did
yeah,
you, I think it was Wogan that he did that
I
flip
think
and then
yeah.
the throwing out money and whatever. I don't know if you saw when he was doing press for Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, he said that when he created that other Cage
Hmm.
character, like the younger version of himself that came to talk to him, that he was thinking of that version of himself, like that
Oh,
version that flipped out onto Wogan, because he doesn't really see that as him. Like he feels like that's just something he did. He feels like that guy's an asshole. So it's like not him really, like, and so he's like, I just wanted to be that asshole for
yeah.
my alter ego guy. And so like I thought that was kind of great that like even if people watch that and go, ugh, like I don't like Nicolas Cage, look at that. And it's like Nicolas Cage doesn't like that either.
Because he has mentioned that that was a great challenge to perform a version of himself,
Hmm.
and this is a for me great story, but a bit of a sad story as well. I've seen the film here in Ghent in a small artsy cinema, and it was on a Sunday, and I was all alone in that movie
No, that
theater.
is sad.
That is sad because I had no one to share it with. But on the other hand, this is the first time ever I had an entire movie cinema room. Wow, movie cinema room for
Yeah.
myself. So I enjoyed the heck out of that film.
Yeah.
And normally, when I recording this with different cameras and all that, there is the giant cutout of Nicolas Cage from Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent behind me. So I
Amazing.
couldn't pop him up here because it was a bit too difficult with, there's no space behind me
Right.
because I'm sitting in a big chair. But he is present with
Aw, that's
us.
great.
Yeah, and of course, for all the listeners and the viewers, I still have my shirt from Nicolas Cage and the Teletubby-san on me, so no worries. Because that's a different story right there, with the making fun of him and the memes. Um, I'm gonna start by asking you: do you have a favorite meme of Nicolas Cage, or a
Ooh.
format of a favorite meme?
Yeah, I think my favorite format is his face on things, like when people would put his face on other actors or on other like objects even. Like as a bunny rabbit, as other things, because
Yeah.
I feel like that was really fodder for what I was arguing about him as being a successful actor in a way that a lot of people who would say he wasn't a good actor,
Mhm.
proof that they were wrong was that these memes took the form of like putting his face on different things and people feeling like it was a natural thing, like no matter what they put his face on, even if it was like a pickle or something, like that they would just, it's like believable. And it's like, well, if that's the truth, then he's the everyman. He's like,
Yeah.
he can be anything. He can morph into all these different things. And so I think that's why that's my favorite style of meme, because it's just evidence, more
Yeah,
evidence.
and the proof that we believe him as an actor, that he can perform all these parts,
Yeah.
and that of course they can morph into anything. Is that what you call caging? Because you talked about a meme
Yes.
form called caging. Have you ever been the victim of caging?
Caging? No, I haven't.
I have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it
What?
was for Valentine's Day. My partner said, "I got a surprise for you."
Uh-huh.
So I said, "Hello." I kissed my partner, and then I went in the living room. And there was nothing out of the ordinary for me. And then I found out on the different pictures in the house, there was Cage's face on my laptop, on the
Oh,
toilet
yes.
seat, in books. I think it took about 4 to 5 months that I found the last face of Cage. There was in an agenda that was for next year. Inside that agenda was a Cage face.
Oh my God, that's incredible. I don't
Yeah,
think that's happened to me. I've been like at fault for doing that. I had a Christmas tree one year that just had Nicolas Cage's, like, different Nicolas Cage faces hanging from it.
wow.
Um, what else? Oh, well, I mean, I guess the closest to that is that during the pandemic, you know that pillow that is like sequins, and
Yeah.
it like it's all red, or it's Nicolas Cage's face? Two people mailed me that pillowcase over the pandemic. One was my publisher and one was a friend, but he just addressed it from Nicolas Cage. So like it took a while to figure out who it actually was that
Oh,
sent
wow.
it to me, because he didn't put his name. And then just like a few weeks ago, my neighbor brought one over and gave it to me, and I was like, now I have three. So yeah, I
That's a
seem
great
like I'm
gift.
obsessed with Nicolas Cage, but it's not all my fault.
Well, yeah, because I've already seen that you have done appearances on other Cage podcasts to talk about him. You have written the book. So to me, you're my first special ever and my first international guest ever, because I thought, who to talk better? Nick Cage shop than Lindsay Gibb.
Oh,
So
thank you.
if you're welcome, because I think, like, I don't want you to be like, okay, this is the only thing I can talk about. I'm sure you have many other interests.
That's okay.
Back
I
to
like
Cage.
talking about him. Interestingly, again, my book came out in 2015, so it's like not the newest Cage thing. There's been at least one big Cage book since my book. But when Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent came out, people started coming out of the woodwork for me again. Like,
Wow.
somebody was writing an article for the BBC and wanted me to comment on him. Somebody was, an NPR radio show wanted to talk to me about him. And then a PR company in Toronto that was like promoting the movie asked me if they could promote me as like an expert to like talk about the movie. And so they sent me to see the movie. Nobody wanted to talk to me, so nothing came of that. But at least I got to see the movie before it came out, which was kind of cool. So I felt
Wow.
like a little bit of a Cage celebrity for a minute again recently. So I don't mind. I love it when people reach out to me about it, because it's like, yay, somebody's still reading my book
Oh,
this
yeah,
many
yeah,
years
yeah.
later.
It was totally not, yeah, totally by accident, actually, because I was looking at some YouTube and I saw Nicolas Cage, Good or Bad. It was a video essay, and he mentioned your book. So I paused
Yes.
the video and I said, wait, there's a book. And I went to my bookshops in Ghent, but they said, yeah, we can't get that book. We're not able to obtain that. So I went to the publisher and they sent it internationally.
Oh, that's
So
good. That's good
yeah,
to know. There you go, ECW Press. They'll send internationally.
yeah, man. So get it. It's great.
Yeah.
You
Amazing.
also back to the memes of it all.
Hmm.
There is one instance that you said in your book that Cage is on to the joke of the memes, that he had a "You don't say" meme on his
On a
shirt.
shirt? Yeah.
Yeah, would that be? Do you think it's his favorite
biggest.
meme?
Maybe. I doubt Cage knows about all of them because I don't think he's really somebody who's like looking at the internet a whole heck of a lot. It seems
Mhm.
like. It seems that that's what he has said in the past. But that was a big one, and
Yeah.
yeah, I could see that being the one that at least he knows about the most. Also, I feel like there's an outtake. Which movie is it from? Is it from The Trust? There was something, I just came upon it again because someone had like posted it on my Facebook page, and so I got one of those like 5 years ago today. This is something that was posted,
Oh,
and it was an outtake, I think. Oh, was it Dog Eat Dog? Was it The Trust? It was one of those films. And where he just went, "You don't say," and he like did the face and stuff, but he said "you don't say," even though that's not what he's saying in Vampire's Kiss in that face. But yeah, so he said it, and so yeah, he's definitely in on that meme for sure.
that's so great. It's so great to hear because if you see yourself popping up on the internet everywhere, yeah, you kind of have to go with it because people are doing it. For instance, on Instagram, if you type in Nicolas Cage in the GIF section, you always get that Con Air thing that he
Oh, the
waves his
hair blur.
hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the favorites. And now with Massive Talent, you get a few punches and nods.
Yep,
Uh,
that's a good one.
yeah, I love those. Uh, we're coming up to the end of this special, and I have a couple of questions for you to end this on an interesting note, I hope.
Okay.
One of the great things that Nicolas Cage says that he's always a student, he will never be the master, he's always learning things. But if we had to put a stop on that, that he has to become the master, not the student anymore,
Mhm.
how would that look like? When could that happen?
Hmm. I don't know. I feel like maybe that's if he ever stopped acting and became a director or something. I could see that being the
Hmm.
case. But I don't know. I don't really see him doing that. I think he loves acting. He has, I
Right.
mean, you know this. He's directed one movie,
Yeah.
but it was a long time ago. So it's like, does he have aspirations to be a director? He could have done that probably by now if he had big
Yeah.
aspirations. Um,
Well, he did it once, so again, that's
yeah,
that fear of I don't know what that is. It's that U-turn again. Now I'm directing.
let's try it.
Yeah,
I'd say it didn't take because he didn't do it again. But who knows? I mean, maybe he's waiting for a couple decades and then he's like, I'll try it again and see what it's like now.
who knows?
Yeah, I don't know what it looks like. I mean, I tried when I was writing this book to think of who a comparable actor is to him, like if there's anybody who's doing similar things or like who's learning from him. I think that, a number of actors who've worked with him, like Jay Baruchel and like wow, his name was just in my head and it's gone. Um, from the Trust. What's his name?
I
Um,
don't know. I'm
Let me
so bad
scroll
with
to the
names.
Trust. I'm going to scroll to the Trust and find out. But he also produced Mandy, I think. His name is Elijah Wood.
Oh yeah, Frodo. Yes.
Elijah Wood is like a big, I think, like fan and learns quite a bit from Nicolas Cage. So, but I said in my book that I thought James Franco was kind of Nicolas Cage-esque, and I thought that before I thought about the fact that he's the main actor in the movie that Nicolas Cage directed. um, and he actually plays the role that Nicolas Cage would have played if he'd made that movie like
Yeah.
decades before when he was young enough to play that actor, or that role. But I was thinking it more because I say that Nicolas Cage is always trying to learn new things, and he was doing all that weird in quotes stuff where he was like doing soap operas and like things you wouldn't expect a big actor to do. But I don't know. I don't even know what James Franco's doing anymore, so I don't. I don't know if
And
that holds up anymore. But
I have no
yeah.
idea. The last thing I saw of James Franco was The Disaster Artist a couple of
Oh
years ago.
yeah. Yeah.
But no idea. No idea.
No idea.
Um, is there a dream project from you that you would love to see Nicolas Cage do? Like, oh, if you could do this book or this video game or whatever.
Oh, that's a good question. Huh. I don't know. For the longest time, I wanted him to do horror movies, and then he went and did like a whole whack of them. So that
Yeah.
was like, I feel like my dream has been fulfilled, and now I have a harder time thinking of what it would be. He has said he wants to do a musical, and I want to see what that looks like.
Oh, wow. I want him to do that. Yeah. Come on. Let's just let the man sing and dance.
I know, because as much as like he's not a like classically good singer, but he sings in so many of his movies. I've
Yeah.
created Twitter threads of like all his singings, like scenes from movies where he sings, at least the ones where I could find clips. And there's quite a lot. There's like more than you would expect. So
Cool.
I think it would be pretty fun to see him do more of that.
Great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And the final thing that I want to talk to you about is the end of your book, where you talk about that you can care, you can have some dedication, trying, hope, and he is hacking away at the idea of what is good.
hmm
How is he doing, according to you?
I think people are catching up. Like I feel like since my book came out, I think, and not I'm not taking credit for this, but I think that more people are on board with what
Mm,
he's doing, and like, yeah, I'm seeing other people like not in Toronto making cage clubs, or at least having like a friend that they watch all of his movies with, and you know, post on Instagram about it and things like that. So I think I don't know. I feel like there's more people on board that he's good. Um, and maybe that means that people are willing to accept more experimental things as being good instead of having this like very Oscars
mm, yeah,
approach to like what's good and what's not. So I don't know. Maybe we're all evolving
maybe we're
to
all
catch up
evolving.
with Cage. Yeah. He's just
The
ahead of his time.
yeah, he is. There are a couple of movies where I think, yeah, just you're ahead of your time. Just you have to wait for the right audience to find this film.
hmm
The final question of each episode is, do you think Nicolas Cage is a national treasure? But in doing so, we have discovered that that is the wrong question for me to ask.
Yes.
So,
International.
is he an international treasure?
Yeah, you know what's funny? I wanted to call my book International Treasure because I'm also not in the States, I'm in Canada. So I
Yeah.
was like, he's an international treasure. Also, I feel like when I was writing the book, a lot of people were telling me, like, people in China love Nicolas Cage. And I was like, okay. Um, and I actually went to China as I was writing the book, not for research, but I did. I was in Tibet and I was always wearing a Nicolas Cage button. And a guy was like, pointing at my button and like, whoa, Nicolas Cage. And so I took a picture of me and the guy like pointing at my button
It's so
just to come
cool.
home and be like, see, people in other countries also love Nicolas Cage. Um, but yeah, so I also felt like he's an international treasure and I didn't want to just call the book National Treasure, but it just, I don't know, made sense, I guess, to call it National Treasure. So that's what it's called. But yes, I agree. He is an international treasure.
Fantastic. Lindsay Gibb, I want to thank you tremendously, enormously, and gigantically for being on this podcast and for being my first ever special.
That's great. I'm very honored.
uh, I'm happy to announce to all my listeners and my viewers that this is not the end, because starting in March, season 2 will come out with guests like Jan Verheijen, like Robin Broos, Lisa de Vriese, all these great people who are making and producing films or reviewing them or making art about Nicolas Cage are coming together in my studio and other places to talk about the greatest actor ever lived. Lindsay Gibb, thank you so much, and I wish you a great day today.
You too. Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. okay.
Well, there you have it, the special with Lindsay Gibb. I want to thank her one last time for talking to me, and to all the listeners. You've heard it. We are coming back with Season 2 of National Treasure. We'll be back on the 2nd of March 2023 with new episodes, new guests, new movies, same old Cage. Or is he? I can't wait for you guys to hear what we have. Thank you again, and take care. Bye-bye.
Nicolas Cage podcast. Na 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 na.